Alright, so now we are going to talk about the tab navigation. So I'm going to comment this out and we're going to start over just like we did previously. So I'm going to go here and say const app navigator, and of course we need to do something else. Now if we go to the documentation, and maybe you're asking yourself, why is this dude showing me the documentation every time? Well, I'm just showing you how to start with everything, use how to use it. But maybe in the future you will get some very particular scenario where you need to do something very specific, so you will need to go through the documentation. Now the documentation of React Native, it's good, but it's not that good. But just showing you this because you're going to go back to this later for sure. So if you're on the docs, right here on the guides, you always get the example. So on this one, I'm always showing you the example of what you can do. Now if you go to the other section, the docs, and you go to the guides, you get the example of the tab navigation. And then if you go to the APIs, you're going to get the create bottom tab navigator. This is what we're going to do, and you get all the options. And notice that of course there's always a pattern on the documentation. Right at the top, the first option you get is the defaults that you're going to be able to do, so which is the second option, the second argument. And they follow the same pattern. The thing is that we can do different things with them. That's why I'm showing you the documentation. But that's okay, let's create it right now. So to create an instance of this, we need to create bottom tab navigator. That's what we need to bring. So I'm going to go at the top, and I'm going to make this a little bit better. All right, and I'm going to go here and say that I want the tab navigator. All right, a little bit better. So of course, I'm going to copy this and create a new instance of create bottom tab navigator. So I'm going to open and close. What do we need to do? Well, we get pretty much two things: the screens we're going to use and the options we're going to be passing. So just like the other ones, we get home, and let me change the keyboard. All right, home, and we get the home screen, right? Then I'm going to do comma. What else? We get the users screen. So users, and then users screen, right? So nothing new so far. So if I just save this and reload the application, this is going to work just like it happened before. So if I reload it, you get the tab at the bottom. And of course, this is very default. We get a lot of properties just to style and manage the bottom tab. So of course, if I am home, I click home, we go home, and if we get users, we go to users. Pretty simple stuff. Now, the main question that comes into my mind is that how many tabs can we add right here? So remember at the beginning of all the section, we talked about we have a different library to do this, which is the Wix one. Well, with the Wix, you can do up to 3 or 4 tabs right here at the bottom. On the React navigation, you can add as much as you want. So I'm just gonna make this up. I'm gonna just, I don't know, say that we have a new section, which is docs. I'm gonna use pretty much always the users screen. Of course, I'm gonna delete this in a minute. I'm going to say dogs, what else? I don't know, cats, and maybe birds, and I don't know, these are, I don't know, wild animals, right? So I'm going to do wild, doesn't matter. And maybe cars, I don't know, one more. I'm going to do this one, cars, doesn't matter. Okay, so if I save it and reload the application, we get all these tabs, right? So this is cool. Now, in real life, this is not what you're going to do. You're not going to add 100 tabs right here because it's going to ruin your UX. But if you put 100, they will, get right here. It's going to put it right here. I couldn't find anything on the documentation of how many tabs we can add. But again, it kind of makes sense that you maybe add 3 or 4, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to go back, just leave the 2 screens we get. So if you go again to the documentation, if you go right here at the top, these are all the options you can get. So I'm going to go with this one, the initial route name. So on this one, we can select what which route, which tab is going to show up first. So if when we start the application, if we want to go to home, of course we say home, and that is the default we get when we reload the app. We start at home. But maybe you want to start at users, so you can say users if you wish. And it's going to start at users, and of course it's users. It's going to start at users, and you're going to get, of course, the user screen. Right. So of course I want home. Now there's another thing you can do. Sometimes you want a different order, but maybe the home is the first one, the default one. But maybe you want to put the home just after the users and the users before, right? So you can do this and you can get something that calls order, right? So I'm going to go and say, okay, I want to add an order, and you need to pass an array of values. So let's say first I want the users, and then I want the home. All right, so if I reload this, we're going to get users first and home after. Let me just double check on the Android. All right, so we get users and home. I'm always using one because I know that this works for both, and I don't want to spend a lot of time going to reload this one, then reload this one, and then this one, and then this one. So I'm just going to the iPhone. All right, what else we can do? Okay, let's go here, and we get this one, which is the tab bar options. And this one is pretty important. So this one is going to be getting an object with the properties of styling the tabs, because right now they look pretty default. So what we do, we just copy this, we pass the tab bar options, and we just need to pass an object with all the options we want to, add. And of course, all these options, they kind of make sense. For example, the active tint color and the active background color. So this one is going to be the color of the active button. So let's say I want a red, and the background color, I want to make it a different one. So whenever this tab it's active, it's going to change to this color, to red and blue. So let's reload it and see what happens. There we go. We get the home, right? And then if I go to the active, it's going to change the active. So we can do the same thing but backwards. I'm going to do comma. I'm going to go to active tint color, inactive tint color, and this one could be, I don't know, yellow, whatever. And the inactive, I'm going to change it to, I don't know, gray. Right, gray. All right, let's see what we get. So reloaded, and we get the gray and yellow for the inactive, and the other one, and of course we're going to be swapping. Right, man, very cool. So you get other options like the show icon. You can add an icon to the tab, and you can use an icon and a label if you wish. Of course, they're going to be occupying a lot of space. Now, but you get, of course, the ability to add an icon. We're going to do this in a couple minutes. Now, I want to show you the show label. The show label is just a Boolean, right? Default is true. And on this one, you can hide the label. So let me just double check it. I'm going to reload it, and we hide the label. Now, sometimes, of course, the label just gets in the way. So you want to remove it and just show an icon because the icon makes sense. So you get the ability to do it. Then you get another other properties like the style and label style. So let me comment this out so we can see what we get with this ones. So the style is going to be a property that will handle the style of the whole tab bar. So it says style object for the tab bar. So this one is going to add a style to the whole tab bar, not the tabs. Everything that sits behind. So if I reload it, of course, we are back to defaults, and I'm going to say true so we can get something, and I'm going to add some style. So if I add a background color, regular kind of a CSS style, and I say green, just like this, reloaded, and we're going to get pretty much the whole background of green. Really cool. All right. So of course you can do a lot of things. Let's say that of course everything that got to do with style, it will pass to that tab bar. Same thing with the label style. This is going to work, but just for the label. So if I go here and add maybe a font size, maybe I don't know, maybe make it a little bit bigger. I'm gonna reload it, and we get a bigger label. All right, man. Now there's one option right here. I'm not going to use it, but it says allow font scaling. Some users, and I'm talking about in real life, they like to go to the accessibility settings and change the fonts so it will show and scale the fonts on their device. Now the problem is that if you allow them to do this, maybe the font is going to get a little bit bigger or too big, and it will move the nav and hide whatever you get right here. So by setting this one to false, right, the default is true, it's going to change pretty much. It's going to scale all the fonts in your application, but not the ones in the tab. So this one is, pretty important. All right. So, pretty cool stuff. So again, we can do a lot of things. And of course, you will need to go through the documentation maybe and just play with this just a little bit. All right, so let's go to the next section and talk about something else.